So we're now a few days into Texas effectively having outlawed abortion for the vast majority of women who will have no idea that they were even pregnant while still being legally allowed to exercise their constitutional rights in Texas. But don't worry, the Attorney General Merrick Garland sent this message out. Also, don't worry, we're not gonna read the whole thing, but let's bring this up. They say that while the Justice Department urgently explores all options to challenge Texas SBA, blah, 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 we're gonna be protecting women and we're gonna provide support from federal law enforcement when an abortion clinic or reproductive health center is under attack. They mean that very specifically. We will not tolerate violence against those seeking to obtain or provide reproductive health services. Yeah, okay, so here's the thing. There's under attack and there's under attack. So Merrick Garland is responding to all of what happened in Texas by saying, if they try even more to stop you from exercising your rights, we'll do something. Okay, I guess, Biden said he was going to fight the removal of the eviction moratorium, and then they gave up on that, like basically without saying anything. So I don't know, Francesca, like hearing from Biden or from the Attorney General that they're gonna be protecting women when right now there's no protection, their rights have been taken away. It just feels it feels performative, it feels pointless.
Yeah, I mean, how? What are you doing? I mean, it's effectively, it feels kind of like the Uber Lyft stuff, but even less like, oh, we're gonna, provide, if you do get sued, Uber driver, we'll help you with the lawsuit. And yeah, that feels nice, but it is also, let's remember, incredibly performative from a corporation that relies on, a gig economy. They are no heroes, they are no saints. Plus, who actually wants to be involved in a lawsuit anyway for so-called aiding and abetting an abortion? The entire law is bogus. You have to look at this from the federal level, from an executive order level. Like what would Trump do? I'm sorry, but what would Trump, if he hated something that was going on in a blue state, what would he do from the top? And that's the way that Democrats and this president need to think more about, what can we actually try and put forward? Is it expanding the court? Is it doing something that Senator Elizabeth Warren wanted to do, which is enshrining abortion rights in the Constitution, rather than just leaving it to, Supreme Court precedent? Is it giving a lot more money and promising a lot more funds to some of these organizations that are on the front lines doing this work, still making sure that women get safe access to abortion? And because that is the entire thing, abortions will still happen, but the people who get them will more frequently die of that procedure, right?
Yeah.
Will die because they are administered it incorrectly, because the black market, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like, there are very concrete things we can do. And it's the same with labor. It's the same with everything. It's how much are you actually serious about protecting workers, women, and the environment? Because you got to do more than just issue these statements.
Yeah, well, yeah, you have to if you want to actually reverse what's being done. If you actually want to protect the women, if even let's say forget all that stuff, that you being consistent with what you say your values are, blah blah blah. If you just want to not lose your majority and lose the presidency, then you should probably do something. But they're not with the eviction moratorium, and they're not when it comes to abortion in Texas right now. And we're talking about this in Texas. Well, that's gonna become quaint very soon because these are gonna pass in a whole bunch of other states. So, and who knows? Maybe there will be a challenge. Maybe the Satanic Temple will do a challenge to the law, and the Supreme Court 6 months from now will say, hey, we just needed time, we're totally striking it down. And maybe not, maybe very much not that will happen. And so we get to be frustrated by the Democrats who are in power. This is not a thing where, hey everyone, look at the bad things that are happening. Everybody needs to rally and elect some Democrats. No, we already did that. We did that before the new bad stuff. And so they should do something. And as we'll jump ahead briefly. So for instance, Elie Mystal is a friend of the show. He said they should put boots on the ground to protect constitutional rights. For instance, you could fund abortion trucks that go in, these federal things that would be mobile clinics or something. Adrienne Lawrence had talked about the possibility of doing it on military bases. There are 100% things you could do, and that's the minor easy stuff. You could get rid of the filibuster, you could pack the court. you could recognize that the Senate is not what people believe it is, that the Supreme Court is not what it's supposed to be. None of these are representative bodies, if they ever were, and they weren't. You could do something about that. They're not willing to do it. And so what are we supposed to do? Just wait the next couple of years and find out how bad things could get before it finally triggers some sort of action commensurate with the threats that we're facing? Is there a line that would trigger that for Biden? Nothing about his ideology tells me that there is. So how much pain and suffering are we willing to allow? Until what, 2024, we roll the dice, hope we get a member of the squad or something?
And even I misspoke recently, even I misspeak, but abortion is a constitutional right now. The idea that Warren was floating and the idea that we need to take seriously is a federal law that prohibits any kind of infringement on Roe v. Wade, which is already constitutional. It should be. I mean, that's sort of a given, but this is an additional federal law. And again, like you're saying, we have a majority in the Senate to pass something like that, right? But is Kyrsten Sinema gonna backtrack now? Right, like who knows where she lands on all this? Wasn't that the whole point, to show that we can like come together and do this, and like Democrats can stick together if we give them what they wanted on the infrastructure bill? So something needs to get through. We need to actually like use this to our advantage. And you're absolutely right that it's not the Republicans are gonna win necessarily in the midterms. I've been very reticent that like how, in what world these like Congress people and senators openly, allowing their constituents to die off from a mass pandemic and not taking protections, giving them the protections they deserve. I don't see that. But what I do see is a large voter depression in terms of turnout. If Democrats are not able to deliver on any of these kinds of things, and this is a perfect opportunity to do that, perfect opportunity to flex your muscle, having the majority in the Senate. If they're not able to deliver, you're gonna see them lose seats, but not because Republicans are gaining, but because Democrats don't feel inspired to come out and vote if they're not willing to fight for us.
Yeah, and like there's you're totally right. So first of all, let me mention, just because you mentioned Kyrsten Sinema, like her tweet about like Happy Labor Day, that ruins a 3-day weekend right there, because she knows what she's doing. It's just, she's trolling us. That's fun. You have professional trolls on both sides. But anyway, they have multiple levels that you could reassure us that you actually will do something. So big structural changes, like expanding the court, smaller things like once again modifying the filibuster, something that's been done multiple times. It wouldn't even be new. We're also in infrastructure week. What do you know? They're putting together the bill. Let's make sure that's good. Or for instance, the easy, super easy stuff that you can do totally on your own, like canceling student loan debt. Now these are not. It's not like a gold statue and a bag of sand. You can't swap one for the other, but you can at least show us that you're willing to do something and that you recognize how power works. So the right creates a bounty system to hunt down people helping women exercise their rights. And then on the other hand, Biden says, well, we're looking into whether I can cancel federally backed student loan debt. We have a commission. It's meeting for 6 months. I don't know. I wonder what will happen. These are not equal things. They're not equal things. And so what's so frustrating with Biden? How often do you even hear anything from Biden or from the Democrats? Seriously, the government has disappeared. But let's go to some other.
Or for the vice president. I'm sorry, like just to say, like.
Oh, I don't even know what she's up to. Like I haven't heard from her in months.
Don't I look like one of those like 80s like drawings, where it's like very, very light, like pencil, where it's kind of like it's all white, and then you go shh. I'm about to go into like the Take On Me song. Take me on. I apologize, it's so bright in my room.
Anyway, it's getting brighter, by the way. I'm a little bit worried that you're about to be consumed.
Oh, I'm about to disappear. Anyway. No, I just think that this is a perfect opportunity for our vice president, the first female vice president this country has seen, to take a stand on abortion rights beyond just statements, beyond shareable memes on Instagram. This is a moment to propose legislation. This is a moment to actually maybe even cajole the president into doing something. It's a moment to make your mark and your legacy if you are hoping to succeed President Biden. If you're gonna be the next person in line, then show up for women, show up for people, show up for reproductive rights.
Totally, 100%. Now, really fast, other news on Texas. First of all, the city council in Portland, Oregon is voting on Wednesday on an emergency resolution that would ban the purchase of goods and services from Texas. It would also bar city employees from traveling to the state until they get rid of their abortion law or it's overturned in court. It's a small thing, kind of nice though. Finally, how is Abbott doing? Well, he's taken away women's rights and he is perfectly fine with everyone dying from COVID. So still pretty well considering. 41% of state residents approve of his job performance. Meanwhile, half, 50% said they disapprove of the governor's leadership. So 41%, he's taking their rights and watching them die, and 4 out of 10 are like, yay, more of this, please. Anyway, only 35% believe the state is headed in the right direction. Man, imagine a conversation with those people. I don't want one. But anyway, that's Texas. Any other thoughts about Texas before we move to voting rights, Francesca?
I mean, shout out to Portland once again. First they host me, now they do this. Ted Wheeler, Ted Wheeler's watching his butt. He's watching his butt. He's messing up mostly, but he's watching his butt. Clearly, he's scared of y'all. Keep him scared.
That's true. That's true. And hey, you're a cool city, but maybe your place could do something about the Proud Boys and all that. No, they're bad.
No, they don't intervene.
No, very hands off.
They've defunded the police.
Yeah, why are you importing Proud Boys? You're not going to import barbecue sauce, but you're importing Proud Boys. Anyway.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.